said good afternoon, everybody. November 6th, right? Y'all have to excuse me, my voice has been going now because we've been around the state. You know, but I can tell you, you can feel the enthusiasm in this room, can't you? Well, I got a news bulletin for you. We feel the same enthusiasm in Dallas, in Fort Worth, in San Antonio, in Austin. We're analyzing the numbers. I got my fingers crossed, but I actually think it's looking pretty good. We just need to export some of that to Ohio and Florida and Virginia, right? Well, thank you all for being here. I'm Steve Missionary, the State Party Chairman, and I have the privilege of introducing the man of the hour, who will then introduce our guest of the hour. But I want to say a little bit about how important this Tony Dale race is. The state party had 100 plus reps last time. The significance of that is if we have 2/3 of the legislature, we don't even need the Democrats for a quorum. By the way, y'all remember when they went to Oklahoma and hit out? See, now we can go do that, we can just say, stay there. And on a serious note, when we try to get through some conservative, liberty, constitutional-based legislation, the Democrats are really good at trying to find some rules that we might have violated. If you have 2/3, you can always vote to suspend the rules. So you all understand the importance of trying to maintain our majority? Yeah. There are 14 toss-up races. We have to win 13 out of 14 to maintain 100.
We can do it.
We can do it. We absolutely can do it. But one of those races, out of 150 state rep races, there are only 14 races that are in doubt. This one was in doubt. The numbers are looking pretty good the first 3 days, but let's not take it for granted. Because in 12 days, if you'll keep knocking on those doors and stuffing those envelopes, you know, Tony will be the next state representative.
Yeah!
And it's so important that he's there because y'all know him. I don't have to tell you this. I've got a chance to know him a little bit during this campaign. Could you find a nicer guy?
No!
More hard-working guy?
No!
More nice guy? I'd say a more conservative guy, but I've got 10 here, so so I'd say it's a tie. And before I turn this over to Tony, and he's going to introduce our future speaker, Ted, but I do want everybody to know that Ted Cruz has been everywhere. Because I know I go a lot of places, and everywhere I'm going, I'm seeing him. So he is not just working for his own election, but every other election, including this gentleman I'm going to turn the microphone to, Tony Dale, the next state representative, and we are so proud of you, sir.
The people that show up for making the phone calls, knocking on the doors, it's the grassroots that really matter. That's how he won his race. That's how we're going to win this race. And I'm really privileged to be here today with some other great members of the Cedar Park City Council, because when I talk about having limited government and local government that is accountable, I've got friends in this room that have stood with me to keep taxes down and pay down debt and put in place things like E-Verify. We've got our Mayor, Matt Powell. We've got Lowell Moore from City Council. And then at our county level, we've got Nancy Reister here, and our county clerk, County Commissioner Lisa Bergman, County Commissioner Cynthia Long, and we also have our County Republican Chairman Bill Fairbrother. We've been working hard for many years to keep this county Republican, and to keep our taxes down, keep our jobs growing. And I'm committed to doing that in the Texas legislature. And I am really privileged to have Ted Cruz here today because, you know, one of the things that's fun about running is not just meeting people, but exposing important people like Ted Cruz to to Cedar Park and Williamson County and letting them know what a great community we have here. A good cost of living, low crime rate, great jobs, great families. So we're glad to have you here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. We have the privilege to hear from a proven leader with a record of fighting for conservative principles and winning nationally. As Texas Solicitor General, he fought for our constitutional rights in the highest court of the land and won. He defended sovereignty, border security, the right to life, the Second Amendment, and the Ten Commandments. As a candidate for the U.S. Senate, he wants to take those principles to Washington and fight for a government that lives within its means and lives within its own constitutional bounds. He's been described by columnist George Will as a candidate as good as it gets, and National Review magazine called him a great Reaganite hope. The campaign is gaining very strong momentum, and he's received numerous endorsements from conservative leaders across Texas and nationally. So please join me in welcoming a rising conservative star, Ted Cruz.
Well, thank you so very much. It is great to be with so many friends here in Williamson County. Thank you, Steve. You are a tremendous chairman for our state party, and thank you for your tireless work on behalf of Republicans all across Texas. You know, Steve is losing his voice at each event. By the end of this, we're going to be doing Get Out the Vote events, and he's just going to be resorting to charades and pantomime. And thank you, Tony, for having me here. Thank you for your hard work. I look forward to our working together to elect Tony Dale to the state legislature. Yeah! It is the men and women in this room who are going to decide Tony Dale's race. It is
already decided.
It is the grassroots. It is the passion and energy of each of you. I'll tell you, having just come through something of a roller coaster of a primary myself, I understand the incredible power of the grassroots of men and women all across Texas and what we can do when we stand together. In 1775, some 700 British Army regulars marched on the military reserves at Lexington and Concord. And the shot heard round the world was fired in defense of liberty. In 1835, the Texians in the city of Gonzales received an order from General Santa Anna to hand over their guns and to hand over the cannon that guarded the city. They responded with the immortal cry, "Come and take it." In 2010, millions of Texans, millions of Americans stood up to defend liberty, and we retired Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And in 2012, millions of Texans, millions of Americans are standing up, and we're going to retire Harry Reid.
Yeah.
And we're going to send Barack Obama back to Chicago.
Yeah.
As Texans and as Americans, we have a legacy of fighting for freedom. It is in our DNA. It is who we are. I want to talk to you about three things. Number one, liberty matters. Number two, liberty is under assault. And number three, we are many. Liberty matters. The United States is the most extraordinary, unique nation in the history of the world. For millennia, men and women were told that our rights came from kings and queens as a matter of grace or whim. Our framers in this country fought a revolution First with bayonets. And as a point of clarification, there are today more bayonets in the military. But an even more important revolution was fought over ideas. And our framers inverted the concept of sovereignty. They said sovereignty didn't come from kings, it comes from the people. And our rights don't emanate from monarchs, they come from God Almighty.
All right.
We formed a nation that was founded on principles we consider self-evident. That all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And our framers formed a constitution that was designed, as Thomas Jefferson put it, as chains to bind the mischief of government.
Yeah.
The result has been the most extraordinary opportunity and prosperity the world has ever seen. It enables people to come here with nothing, like my dad did 55 years ago, coming to Austin from Cuba with $100 in his underwear. I don't actually advise keeping money in your underwear. But to come with nothing and work to achieve anything.
Yes.
The legacy of our freedom is every man and woman in this room is entitled to be judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Now let me tell you, liberty is under assault. It is under assault like never before. You know, a couple of months ago, I had the great privilege of speaking at the Republican convention down in Tampa. I talked about our national debt. I talked about our two little girls, Caroline and Catherine. Afterwards, Heidi and I went back to the hotel room. It was about 1:30 in the morning. And I pulled out my iPhone and began looking at Twitter. And the comedian, Paula Poundstone, whom I don't know, but apparently she was watching the convention. And she tweeted, she said, Ted Cruz just said when his daughter was born, the national debt was $10 trillion. Now it's $16 trillion. What the heck did she do? Heidi and I laughed so hard we almost fell out of bed. But you know, that really underscores the gravity of the situation. Our daughter Caroline is 4 years old. In her short life, our national debt has grown nearly 60%. It is fundamentally wrong. It is immoral to give our kids and grandkids a crushing debt from which they can never escape. And I know it is utterly unacceptable to every man and woman here. Every generation of Americans has given the next generation a brighter future, greater opportunity, greater prosperity. We will not be the first generation to give our kids and grandkids anything less.
Yeah.
And that leads to my third point. We are winning. And I'll tell you the reason we're winning is simple. We're right. We're right, they're wrong. Our ideas work, their ideas don't work. And anyone here watch the first debate between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama? There's a technical term for what happened there. It's called opening up a can of whoop-ass. How many times did Barack Obama look startled like a deer in headlights when asked where do jobs come from? How do we turn our economy around? How do we get the 23 million people struggling to find work back to work?
Yeah.
All three debates, he couldn't seem to find an answer. Every time the question was asked, I kept expecting Candy Crowley to come running in to try to save it.
He still has.
What President Obama says over and over again is he inherited the worst economy in the history of the universe. Every problem we have is George W. Bush's fault. In fact, I don't know how many of y'all watched that really painful Texas-Oklahoma football game.
We won.
I am told on good authority from the White House that terrible game was all George W. Bush's fault. In fact, Bush dropped 3 touchdown passes in the end zone. But you know, for him to say this is the worst economy since the Great Depression, it seems President Obama is a little bit lacking in historical memory. Does anyone here remember 1978, 1979?
Yes.
You remember double-digit unemployment? 22% interest rates?
Yeah.
Gas lines going around the block?
Rationing.
You remember stagflation?
Yes.
That was not a compliment. And yet in 1980, a very different president was elected. Ronald Reagan, like Barack Obama, inherited an economy that was struggling and had real challenges. But President Reagan implemented very, very different policies. Instead of jacking up taxes like Obama did, Reagan cut taxes.
Yeah.
Instead of exploding spending and exploding the debt, Reagan constrained the growth of government spending. And instead of unleashing regulators to strangle small businesses, Reagan limited regulation, unleashed entrepreneurs and small businesses. And the result was extraordinary, unprecedented prosperity. The 4th year of President Reagan's administration was 1984. That precisely corresponds to right now, the 4th year of Obama's administration. Does anybody know what GDP growth was in 1984? Besides Bobby, who keeps following me around? 7.2%.
Wow.
This last quarter, our GDP growth was 1.3%. People are hurting. One set of policies works and one doesn't. Government doesn't create jobs, entrepreneurs create jobs. Small businesses create jobs. 2/3 of all new jobs come from small businesses. And by the way, the Democrats are fond of telling us that all Hispanics have to be Democrats. That Hispanics are not allowed to think for ourselves.
Yeah. What about the
I mean-
Republicans?
What about Hispanic Republicans? We don't exist.
But they're getting more.
We're like trolls and unicorns. Let me tell you a very interesting statistic. There are 2.3 million Hispanic small business owners.
Yes.
There are roughly 50 million Hispanics in this entire country. If you assume 2 per household, that means 1 in 10 Hispanic households is a small business. And the Obama policies have been killing small businesses, killing jobs. We need to get our economy going. We need to unleash small businesses. We need to get people back to work. I want to close by giving everyone here a challenge. Many of y'all have gotten to know my father, Raphael Cruz. He is a pastor just north of Dallas. He has traveled the state. I cannot tell you how many Republican women have told me, they said, Ted, we like you fine. We love your dad. And the challenge my father has given all over the state of Texas is as follows. The election is 12 days away. Not 13, not 14, 12 days. I want to challenge each and every one of you that as the sun sets 12 days from now, each of us can look in the mirror and say to ourselves, self, I did everything I humanly could to turn this country around. I poured my energy, my passion, my time, my financial resources into saving this country. I knocked on doors, I got on the phone, I got on Facebook, I got on Twitter, I got on email. I got in a car and drove to Ohio or Virginia and Florida and knocked on doors and told people, please help pull this country back from the brink. I came to the campaign office here and made phone calls and helped elect Tony Dale to the state legislature. I helped our friendly neighborhood U.S. Senate candidate. I did everything humanly possible to defend liberty. That's the challenge I want to give you because, you know, that's our legacy. It's who we are as Texans and Americans. It is in our blood. We happy few, that are called upon to step up and defend this great nation. Psalms chapter 30, verse 5 tells us, weeping endures for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. The last several years, there has been a lot of weeping in this country. But let me tell you, morning is coming. Morning is coming. And I am incredibly honored, I am humbled to stand shoulder to shoulder with each of you, fighting to preserve and protect that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America. Thank you and God bless you. Now let's get to work.
Feel free to come up and take pictures if you want. We also are asking if you can stay and make phone calls. We got our phone bank open. See Amy up here and she'll get you hooked up. Thanks, everybody. Hey, while you're still listening, we also have Michelle Campbell here, who's the Mayor Pro Tem of Leander. Thanks for coming, Michelle. And Third Court of Appeals candidate Scott Field is also here. You really need your support this fall.
Sorry, I think that was your foot. Sorry.